Check, check, check. Talk to me. I'm not hearing it like regular, like normal.
You can't hear yourself?
I hear you now.
Okay.
I'm not hearing myself, though.
Okay, well, check your line there.
I mean, I don't need to hear myself, but as long as you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you really good.
Okay. All right, cool.
All right.
I don't mind.
All right.
My ears are, I don't know, they're getting worse, I guess.
That loud rock and roll music.
Loud rock and roll music. Loud lawnmowers.
Music.
Yeah, rock and roll music too. So, all right, hey, we're back. Welcome. We're live. This is the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy. How's everybody doing today? Back here in the studios at allpointstv.com. Got it going on. Hi, Facebook. How's everybody doing out there? And YouTube land. You can't really respond on YouTube, but see you in the comments. Anyways, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to be back here. It's January 22nd. We're here in the heart of Flint and making it happen. This is another wonderful day. It's 32 degrees, and I don't know. I feel kind of melancholy about the weather, all right? I'm trying to go snowmobiling, and the shit is just not cooperating, okay? This global warming is messed up. Anyways, all right, back on schedule. Got lots of stuff I want to share with you today. Get you guys up to speed with what's been happening with medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, going down to Michigan and across the state and country and nation. Let's get it on, all right? Man, if you haven't been down to the club, you need to get down there and check it out. For those of you that are down there, I love you. You rock. And I want to say thank you for everybody who helped out yesterday with the soup kitchen. Definitely. We had our soup kitchen yesterday over on Stewart Street at the North End Soup Kitchen, North End Charities, and just thank you, everybody, especially this time of year when it's cold, man. People really appreciate that. So thank you, members. Thank you, G3C, for being a part of it. It's awesome. We got some other stuff coming up here. I know we've got lots of events planned. It's going to be a fantastic year. 2020 is looking to be awesome. And I'm already hearing about our 420 party. Can you believe it? We get these things started. We ain't waiting around. We ain't hesitating. And my man Brian has been hard at work, apparently. And he is cooking up some great ideas and other things for our 420 party. But it's looking to be a killer time. And I know it's a little early to talk about it, but we've been talking about it. So another thing, and we'll get into the news here in a minute, but since I'm talking about 420 and April and stuff like that, Hash Bash, right? It's the annual Hash Bash. Every year, goes down in Ann Arbor at the Diag. You guys know what's up. Lots of people like to go down early, get a seat at Domino's or whatever it is. I forget the name of the place, but the pizza joint. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is because it is coming up. It's in April. It's the first Saturday in April, all right? I don't even know what that date is. It doesn't matter. It's the first Saturday in April. It always is. It's going to be this year as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun, no doubt. But my question is, I know that there's certain people who help organize Hash Bash every year, and they certainly do a fine job. They've brought in some big speakers last few years. It's been a huge event. We've seen politicians show up, pretty big ones, make speeches, so on and so forth. I guess my question is does Hash Bash, under the new recreational license that we have here in Michigan, does Hash Bash have to have one of these event licenses? You guys know what I'm talking about. So as a part of the new recreational law, Michigan passed this category of business, a licensed event holder, if you will, a marijuana event, and you have to have a license to do this. So my question is Hash Bash licensed? Is it going to be licensed in time? Does it need to be licensed? I'm sure there's people behind the scenes making this happen, but I know as of to date, I think there's only been one of these event licenses issued in the state, and I want to say it was like somewhere up north, like Kalkaska or something like that. But anyways, we'll be keeping our ears open for this. I'm sure in spite of the license, whatever that process is or isn't, Hash Bash is going to be going on without a doubt. So, but I don't know. I was just curious. So anybody out there, anybody know anything, feel free to comment, call in. Number's 810-250-7365. Let us know. But I know it's going to be an awesome event this year, no doubt. And of course, with the proliferation of cannabis recreationally here in the state of Michigan, I know last year's Hash Bash was absolutely huge, and I think this year, I bet you this year will be even bigger, weather permitted.
So you said the first Saturday of April?
Yeah, first Saturday of April.
It's going to be the 4th. It's going to be the 4th.
Boom, there we go. April 4th. How cool is that? 4/4. 4/4/2020. That's kind of cool. 4/4/2020. I like that. That's a perfect date for Hash Bash.
It's a sign from you-know-where. Right?
I believe it is. So, all right. So you guys mark your calendars. 4/4/2020. It's going down. All right. What else we got going on here? I wanted to talk about what's happening in the state. But before we do that, I wanted to give you a brief summary overview, if you will, of our nation, where we're at. The first state, if you don't recall, to approve medical marijuana was California. That was back in 1996. And man, that seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah,
on one hand, it was like yesterday, but on the other hand, it was like...
What year did you say it was?
96.
See, back then I was probably more on the lines of like, well, I wasn't all that happy about it. But as I got older and saw the cost for incarceration, all that stuff, I got more on board for legalization.
Start getting a little bit more,
Okay, it's like, why am I paying for this?
Behind the scenes instead of the paranoia propaganda.
Well, what it was, basically, I just said, well, this is the law. You're good. If you know the law and you violate it, don't whine to me that you got pot for it. I mean, that's,
I understand.
I grew up around kind of a criminal element, and they got popped. We didn't go around saying.
So it wasn't necessarily like the stoner stigma that was turning
I didn't care about that. Yeah, if you know the law, you're breaking it. And you
kind of like a Casey Jones. You broke the law.
Well, I figured it's like a game. It's like all it is. It's a game, and you got caught. Don't cry. Yeah, that's what. But then I said, well, why are we doing this for like $35,000 a year and incarcerate somebody over a nickel and dime drug deal?
Start realizing you're the one who's paying for it.
Yeah, that's right. So basically I'm not that I'm compassionate. Don't deal. I worry about the bottom line, and it still comes to the same outcome. But don't try to say, well, what about well, you knew the law. That's my take on it years ago.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting perspective. I like hearing that because. Obviously there is still opposition to cannabis out there. John's, we've converted John. He's a convert now. He's not really a consumer, but at least he's on our side. And, after 10 years of doing this, he wasn't really that hard to convince. No, I'm just kidding. But no, there are legitimate people out there that are bringing up, arguments to cannabis. And sometimes those arguments can have weight, and other times they don't. We just recently saw Michigan roll out their latest propaganda machine, which was funded, or I guess I should say is going to be funded by marijuana tax dollars, which was being used to turn back around and spew some of the same bull crap propaganda that's been delivered to us, and fly it in our face, so to speak. Like, hey, Michigan, you approved marijuana. Don't be a couch potato now. And it's essentially was the message of the propaganda they were putting out. And I don't feel like that's a proper use of our taxpayers' dollars. And it obviously doesn't, reflect the sentiment of Michigan's voters as we just legalized this for recreational use. And there certainly could be better messages put out there as cautionary or advisory type announcements about marijuana that could actually be useful. But no, we instead allowed some advertising agency, because apparently government's got a lot of payback to do for all these media companies helping them get elected, and now we're pumping out ads left and right with no regard to whether or not they're relevant, make sense, have any factual data, or any real good judgment in their creativity or in their dissemination. So it continues to be spewed, it continues to go on, but in spite of all this, in spite of all that, we are converting people. Like I just said, John's a convert. And by the end of 2020, we're likely to have 40 of the states of the United States have medical marijuana, or recreational marijuana for that matter, but 40. So we are a long ways past the majority point. In fact, we were tickling the tipping point 2-3 years ago. with more than 25 states having some type of marijuana legislation on the books. Now we're approaching a large majority, 40. Some of the states that we're looking to add on in 2020, and I'm going to give you their names because some of these are like the last holdouts. New Jersey's on the list because we're likely to see legislative changes in New Jersey, but New Jersey already does have some type of medical marijuana, even though it's a BS program. Same thing with New Mexico. They had it, retracted, brought it back, so on. We're likely to see changes there also in New Mexico. New York is another one. Incredibly crappy program. Hardly anybody's getting access. The access that is being given is incredibly limited as far as the amount of medication that is available, or the type of medication that is available, or the uses that it's available for. So all three of these states are good representatives of very minimal medical marijuana legislation that has been passed in the past, that is likely to change this year and become more prevalent for the popular use. Other states that we've seen holdouts in is like South Dakota, and that's looking to have a change possibly this year. And another one, which was kind of on the list as like one of the ones that might never, is Mississippi. Deep South state, very conservative as far as drugs and so on. But at any rate, we might see change there as well in 2020. So these all go down. By the end of 2020, we're looking at a possibility of 40 states having legislation for medical marijuana, or for, in this case, for recreational marijuana. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be a stronger pressure on the federal government for them to do something. I guess my fear, being a business insider, if you will, is that because of the states already having all of their own laws, there may be a little less pressure from some of the more knowledgeable people on the federal government by those knowledgeable people, because they already have what they want in the area that they live in. There's some quotes in here from Marijuana Policy Project, who is actively working to get these states passed. MPPs were the organization that helped us get ours passed here in Michigan, our original medical marijuana law, that is. And, obviously they're working and still punching through those lies and propaganda that's been spewed out over all this time, and it takes time, it takes money, and they're starting to get more of that in action. Now you have opposition groups that are still out there, but like guys like Kevin Sabat, still trying to oppose future legislation. It's just completely goofy. Anyways, I'm sorry. Let me back up here for a second. All right, sorry about that. All right, moving on to our next subject here. We have, I was reading through the headlines, and I thought this was interesting. It was ABC 12 put this article out. You can check it out for yourself. The headline says, Detroit police linking 2020 homicides so far to marijuana. That's the headline. Trying to link homicides with illegal marijuana trade. So I got into the article. I wanted to check this out. Thought, oh, that's horrible. Let's see what it says. First part of the article here says, Detroit's police chief says marijuana deals have been a common theme in many of the 17 homicides reported in this year. So, first of all, let's back up and look at this headline stating that we're linking homicides to marijuana. But then the article of the chief actually says, well, it's been a theme in many of the 17 homicides that have been reported. And of course, they go on to talk about the illegal market is still thriving. The Detroit City Council has not yet approved recreational sales in the city, and they're not even getting to the subject until January 31st, which doesn't mean they're going to be opening up doors the next day. But at any rate, obviously they've got something to work on here. And in the meantime, the police chief says that he's focusing on people that are illegally carrying guns while buying or selling marijuana. This is just, to me, this is more propaganda, just in a new way. based on the fact that now this marijuana is legal, so you can't, say the old lies about it anymore. Now we got to come up with new ones. And so we're going to talk about, our homicides are linked to illegal marijuana sales. I guess if we were to go back and look at the drug war, you could say that the majority of the deaths in the drug war were due to illegal sales. All right, it wasn't necessarily due to the fact that it was marijuana or it was cocaine. It was the fact that it was an illegal market and people are being killed over money is what's being happened. So I always try to tear these things down, and that one there just looked like a bunch of baloney. So, all right, other cities in Michigan I wanted to mention here, other cities that have legislation going on, and some examples of these. Cadillac just recently approved recreational marijuana businesses back in September. Last night, it appears they made changes to the rules. They decided to allow more than one marijuana business in a single property. And this basically looks like they went through and cleaned up some zoning issues there in Cadillac. Another place, Kalamazoo, doing the same thing. Big Rapids, another one. Some of the other cities we just saw recent development in. I was reading from a friend of ours, Brad Forrester, was talking about Sheboygan. Incredibly restrictive regulations being drawn up there for their city. And in the opinion that I read from him was basically they're so incredibly stringent that the current business that was considering moving to Sheboygan to open up is now maybe possibly considering pulling out because the regulations are so incredibly tight. They even went so far as to make up their own penalties and misdemeanors for not following their own regulations. So really just incredible overreach by local government there. Another place, Detroit, just mentioned there. Lansing also supposedly working on legislation. In the meantime, the businesses are, go ask any business owner in Lansing what they feel like around the medical marijuana industry in Lansing, and it is just a complete train wreck. All right, so we'll have yet to see how that works out. Marquette, here's a shining example. Marquette just recently passed legislation up there. Obviously, UP country. But apparently has a little bit different philosophy than the rest in that they took the approach that they were not going to limit these businesses, not going to limit the number of businesses, and they were going to allow the free market to decide ultimately how many businesses their community would allow. So almost seems like a novel approach in today's day and age. Really shouldn't be that far out, but unfortunately it does seem to be like it's far out. All right, moving on here. I wanted another story I wanted to share with you, and I thought this was disappointing to say the least. This is from the NFL. Basically, they have an expert panel created by the NFL and its players union, and it is downplaying the potential benefits of CBD for players. So they're stating that while cannabis compound shows promise in treatment of some forms of pain, they're saying that the science currently doesn't live up to the hype. And it's interesting how they have these panels and people, try to speak to the players or to the organizations. They also have an impact on sports throughout the country, not just on an NFL level, but on down through. And, the NFL is certainly one of the pinnacles of our sporting community, if you will. So they're sort of setting an example here. I think that for them to downplay something that's therapeutic for their players, that's not damaging, really it isn't anything that they should be even a part of, I guess. I think, like, why are you sticking your nose in this? Anyways, go on to say that CBD is a promising compound, but the level of its use in the U.S. outpaces the level of research at this point, the committee wrote in a white paper for their players. Most of the hype about CBD is based on results from animal studies, end quote. Clinical trials in large number of people are usually needed before millions of Americans use a medication for serious medical problems, the group said. There are 2 small clinical studies that suggest that CBD may be effective for treating a kind of pain called neuropathic pain that involves burning feeling usually in a person's feet. So they're getting into details, cutting these clinical reports apart, but yet they don't want to take a look at anecdotal evidence. They want to take a look at the reports from millions of Americans across the U.S. who have claimed all the different benefits that they have claimed. And in addition to that, the fact that there aren't any damaging things about CBD. We're not seeing people, overdose. become addicted or things like this in comparison to the painkillers that they're being offered as an alternative. So FDA raises their concerns, blah, 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 blah. And then basically, it doesn't say that they've banned. Let's see here. It says, after MLB, Major League Baseball, announced last year that it was removing cannabis from its list of banned substances, Jerry Jones and Tom Brady both said that they're expecting the NFL to follow suit and change its marijuana policy. Negotiations are ongoing between the league and the players' union. There's pressure on the NFL to adopt a more permissive policy when it comes to marijuana, especially for states that have opted to legalize it for medicinal or recreational use. Fact-finding forum panel held on Tuesday wasn't aimed at amending the league policy directly, but rather is meant to be an educational and scientific exercise that does not impact the jointly administered policy and program on substances of abuse, said in their statement. So, anyways, they exercise their players to use extreme caution. Says here, potential problems associated with cannabis from acute impairment of driving, addiction, exacerbation of psychiatric disorders such as depression and anxiety, and make it a substance to approach with extreme caution. So that's what the NFL is telling their players about CBD. And of course, obviously, they've gone on to include cannabis in general, expanding on their statement. But good grief, you think these NFL players don't know better? You think they really don't have that access to that information to be able to call out your BS the minute that you said it? Good grief.
All right. I don't understand. There's no documentation whatsoever of that, how much of a harmful effect from smoking marijuana, yet people are still beating that dead horse. I mean, I'm not, if I can understand the impairment, I think there's, I wouldn't say you can become the fastest driver smoking weed, but, this kind of stuff is just, it's not going to be devastating over a period of time, collectively on the body is the drugs they allow their players.
The statement that they issued is incredibly negative, as you can tell from me reading there. But the fact that here's a substance that these players could potentially use that could potentially offer pain relieving abilities, and the alternative to this substance is already available, and it's harmful, addictive, and damaging, and we know this. All right, we're spending millions of dollars right now as a nation on opioid awareness. Okay, so for us to think that these players don't know this, or for the players to have to sort of, for the NFL to come out and say like a completely negative viewpoint on this substance without any type of consideration that it could potentially also be a positive. Does the NFL work for Pfizer? Is that what's going on here? I don't know. I think their games are sponsored by AstraZeneca or something like that. Anyways, moving on. Political candidates. I'll touch on this real quickly. We had recently Tulsi Gabbard come out, say that she's for legalizing drugs. Go Tulsi. Pete Buttigieg. How do you say his name, John? I know you know.
No, I do not know. I've heard that. I don't know anybody pronounces that name. I don't think correctly. I don't. But anyway.
All right, but you guys know I'm talking about the mayor of South Bend. He's come out and says he wants to end the war on weed, kind of. And then, of course, we've got, I think most people are aware of Bernie's choice. I think he's all about legalizing cannabis. And then we have old Joe Biden, who says that we need more research. He is not about legalizing. He thinks we need to have more research. He is old school. All right, this dude is straight out of the 50s, and he ain't changing a thing. So, Silver Joe, it's time to go. Anyways, let's see here. Washington State. Did you guys see this? The state of Washington is looking at passing legislation that would limit their concentrates. Get this. Limit their concentrates to 10% THC. Are you kidding me? What? Who makes this stuff up? I don't know. It's nuts. Yeah, a bill that would ban concentrates, essentially, limit all THC or all cannabis forms to 10%. And of course, they're citing, we have these stronger concentrates now, and they're, possibly could make people get psychotic or, go schizophrenic. So we got to limit this down until we can do more research. Good grief, people. So the reason I bring it up is because here in Michigan, we already have limits on our recreational amounts. We need to make sure that those don't get brought down, if you will. And as I mentioned earlier, when we look at a federal legalization down the road, we need to ensure that we don't bite ourselves, in the foot, if you will. I mean, we need to make sure that we protect our rights as growers and consumers and patients, and are not limited to whatever this type of result would be. This is ridiculous. All right, and one more thing I wanted to bring up: patents. All right, most of you are pretty aware that THC was given a patent years and years and years ago by the government, and nobody seems to know who owns that patent. But at any rate, there is a very interesting series of articles. I'd recommend you check this out. And I'm try to pull up the right one here. Good gravy. If you go to Leafly, I believe it is. And I'm going to do this right now so you guys can see this. Yes, leafly.com. And it is called Inside the $1 Billion Race to Patent Cannabis. And I'm not going to go through this because it's a 4-part series. It's quite in-depth and detailed, and I can't do a better job than what's already on paper here. So check it out for yourself. Like I said, most of you are fully aware that THC itself was given a patent a long time ago. There's been other patents that have been issued since then. And of course, now we're entering into this industrialized, commercialized, corporatized industry. And, people are looking to see if somehow they can capitalize on their work, their effort, their inventions, if you will. And, we're not talking about the latest hydroponic system that's going to grow your plant for you, or the newest environmental controls system that, probably does deserve a patent. We're talking about the actual plant itself. And of course, we've seen this in other industries where you've had Monsanto, companies like DuPont, who are now the same company. But we've seen them sue each other, sue small farmers for the rights to that plant, whether it be a certain strain of corn or tomato or whatever it may be. And obviously, this is a concern for cannabis as we continue to understand more and more about the strains that are out there and their potential benefits, the potential cannabinoid content of these types of strains. We certainly have the potential, if you will, to see strains possibly be patented. How would you like to have a OG Kush patent or something along those lines? Or you get the idea. Should this be done? How would this be done? I don't know, but these are definitely questions to be raised. And how far do we go in trying to protect people's intellectual property, if you will, or their invention or their particular strain that they're working with? And I don't think it's so much about protecting people like you and me, caregivers that are out there, patients that are out there. I don't think they're going to come after your Gorilla Glue, for example. That's not really what we're talking about here. But what we are talking about is, let's say a seed giant like Monsanto comes along, and now they have the ability to sue you because you're growing your pot plants in your backyard, and that somehow cross-pollinated and ruined their seed stock, or ruined their harvest, or created some new strain that you're not supposed to be able to do, or who knows what. When you get to looking at how farmers are regulated with their seeds, right down to each seed having a serial number on it, identifying what year it's supposed to be used in and what batch it's from, the capabilities are already there and being used in the technology and in the industries surrounding agricultural seed production. So it's no question that can be done to cannabis as well. The question is how do we protect ourselves as individuals from inferior strains or from superior corporations who may want to take away your personal rights and abilities? So this is definitely something to pay attention to. As I stated, the article is available on leafly.com. Please check that out. It is, again, the $1 billion race to patent cannabis. And I know a lot of us have had dreams about, getting a patent for one of our own strains that we've bred and come up with. And I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but we have, I think, bigger concerns on our hands. And I think just trying to protect our own personal rights is probably a big enough concern as it is. So, all right. That's about it for the podcast this week. That's what I want to share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be back here again. Get down to the G. We've got an awesome menu down there. It's guaranteed to warm you up. Taco Tuesdays are amazing if you guys like tacos. We also have chili on the menu and other delicious items. Get down there. It's good to warm you up. And we're going to have some fun events this year, so get ready, all right? And go see your caregiver, all right? Good times. Thanks for being here at the Genesee County Compassion Club show. Thanks for letting me back in the studios at All Points TV. Appreciate it, John. You being here on this nice cold day. You guys stay warm, stay safe, and stay stoned. See ya.